Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Stargate Universe Sci-Fi Cult Classics franchise documentary. I'm delighted to be joined by Mike Dopud to talk about his role and his time. I suppose he's several roles, to be quite honest, across across the Stargates or the universe. He was in Stargate SG1. He played Colonel Ruslan Chernovshev and Odai Ventrell. On Stargate Atlantis, he played Kiryk, and on Stargate Universe, he played Varro. I suppose, first of all, Mike, I'm just going to start off in terms of sci-fi, in terms of growing up. Were you always a sci-fi fan? Were you always drawn to sci-fi TV shows, that sort of extraterrestrial sort of world, that sort of daring, beyond the moon and Buzz Aldrin and all that sort of thing? Were you that sort of guy growing up?
Honestly, no. Although I did love the post-apocalyptic world. I loved movies like I think Mad Max was one of the movies that made me want to become an actor. I remember watching that with my brother. What else? I really wasn't into sci-fi that much, such as Star Trek and those other shows. But eventually, I fell into it, and obviously, I've become a huge fan of sci-fi.
I suppose, Mike, in terms of Stargate, had you seen the original movie when it came out in 1995 with Kirk Douglas and James Spader? And were you sort of drawn to that when you heard there was going to be a TV series? Were you drawn to it based on the movie, on terms if you had seen the movie and what you'd seen?
Yes, I do remember seeing it in the theaters, and I became a fan of Stargate. And then when I heard they were making a series here, and I was just starting out my career as well. So it was definitely one of those things that I was like, wow, hopefully I get a chance to be on this show. And then it worked out and I was able to get on SG1. I think I even did the pilot as a stunt guy or background performer. I can't remember back in the day, but very soon after that, I ended up doing a lot of stunt work as well for Stargate.
And you mentioned Stargate and Stargate SG1, and obviously that was a big that was the big one in terms of the Stargate sort of universe. And obviously the people will claim the claim to fame is that Stargate SG1 probably outdone the movie, and the movie was good, but Stargate SG1 in terms of having 10 seasons, in terms of the amount of episodes that they did, it probably became an iconic sort of sci-fi sort of TV series. But you mentioned being in the pilot, so were you always around the director's thoughts in the producer in terms of certain roles having been involved in it so early on? Were you always there around, always sort of in their thoughts and minds, always readily available for certain roles?
No, honestly, it wasn't like that at all. It was I remember Scott Attia was the stunt coordinator at the time, and I had just started auditioning. And stunt-wise, my career sort of took off quickly, and then acting-wise, it sort of took a while to catch up. So I remember reading for a few times, and it didn't go my way. But then the people knew me as a stunt guy on Stargate before they realized, when they came to see me do plays and that kind of thing. Then they realized, oh my God, Mike's an actor. So Scott Attia was the coordinator that was able to get me on the show. And after that, I had a great time, and I guess things went well. And then he'd keep me in mind for a lot of things. So I was very fortunate that way.
I suppose, Mike, in terms of normally when you play a character in a sort of a TV series, and once your face is sort of shown and sort of revealed, it's very hard then to sort of portray a sort of different character unless you're sort of appearing in a ghost or a vision. But you were able to do that in terms of Stargate SG1, playing the two characters. Obviously, Odai Ventrell probably looks more similar to you, but in terms of playing the Russian as well, did you have to sort of change that sort of appearance and sort of do a bit of work there so that you wouldn't be easily recognized?
It was interesting because with Colonel Chernovshev, my first role essentially on Stargate was Michael Greenberg. When I auditioned for him, he was just like, "Oh my God, I didn't know you were an actor. I just heard from other people that you're doing plays." And then Peter DeLuise, our director, Peter DeLuise, had mentioned that that I was an actor as well. And And then when I remember trying with my hair, I was doing another show and I couldn't cut my hair. So they basically slicked it back a little bit more to be more like a colonel. And then when it came to Odai Ventrell, that was just more my look as far as it goes. We didn't really change the hair that much, but I was able to, I guess, fool people for a little bit, and then eventually they all caught on. So
I suppose I remember seeing that episode and doing my research about that Odai Ventrell sort of character, and that was sort of a unique sort of fun character to sort of play this sort of role, sort of bounty hunter on the trying to sort of. It was a well done sort of show because you were on several different sets in terms of
yeah.
trying to capture the members of SG1 and so it brought a different sort of you got to play the whole sort of universe in terms of trying to go around and capture all the members of SG1, and that was I say that was a fun episode to play. It certainly looked it to watch anyway.
Oh, absolutely. It was such a great episode, and Peter DeLuise and Joseph Malazzi, one of the producers, they were so great with me, and they basically told me to have fun with it and go for it. So and Ben Browder was great. Everybody treated me really well. Amanda Tappy. I mean, I've known all those people for years doing the other stuff, but they were really supportive as far as my acting career was going, and the fact that I got to play Odai Ventrell and this amazing character that was such a fun character to play. I was really lucky, and they treated me great, and I had a blast playing it. I really did.
Yeah, and I suppose playing a sort of a Russian sort of a character as a sort of an actor, you sort of you sort of research, you try and make yourself sound a bit more Russian. Do you watch old movies with sort of Russian sort of actors who played Russian actors before? Gary Chalk obviously appeared in Stargate, and he played a Russian actor as well. So you sort of lean off him in terms of asking him. I don't know if you know Gary, or in terms of trying to see that, or obviously your first time probably impersonating a Russian?
I know Gary, but no, I did not ask Gary. I'm Serbian. My whole family was born in the former Yugoslavia. So it's, there's a lot of similarities to Russian. And then I would just literally channel my dad. And then I knew some Russians, but I would watch movies. I would definitely look at different accents. I Google, a lot of different Russian accents, because so many times there's so many, it depends what region you're from. So all the accents tend to be different, just like Ireland, right? There'll be, stronger accents in certain areas. So I just tried to make it more of a generic accent, and I think it worked. So I still I play a lot of Russians, it seems. So, or Eastern Europeans. So yeah, it was easier for me, I guess, to get the accent down because I'm Serbian.
And I suppose, Mike, when you heard about the new sort of spin-off series coming about in terms of Stargate Atlantis, because you had done roles in Stargate SG1, did you try out for some of the primary main roles in Stargate Atlantis?
No, I didn't for Stargate Atlantis. I don't know how that came about. I remember at one point to play Kiryk, it was Joseph Malazzi I'd spoken with, and Paul Mully, and Will Waring was our director on that one. And I didn't read for any of the main roles on Atlantis. And but eventually, after a couple of years, they decided to see me again, and I ended up booking the Kiryk character.
Yeah, and I suppose in terms of working as probably on SG1, in terms of a sort of slick, sort of professional, sort of unit, a team that's been there for years, and then you probably have Stargate Atlantis with a new crop of actors trying to buy into the sort of Stargate sort of universe. Do you felt that Stargate Atlantis for a spin-off series was very slick in terms of its Big Daddy original, and sort of obviously playing your role Kiryk? Did you feel that you almost felt you were on the set of Stargate SG1, or did you notice any difference?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there were differences because of the characters that were there. I worked mostly with Jewel State and Jason Momoa. But having said that, there was a lot of similarities in the sense that the producers were the same, and Will Waring was a camera operator as well as a director that I'd worked with before on SG1. So yeah, there were a lot of similarities, but it was its own show. So yeah, again, it's funny because the family, it's still a family, correct? It's they were shooting, I believe, SG1 at the same time as well, finishing up SG1. So it was yeah, a lot of similarities, but it was definitely its own show.
Yeah, and I suppose that brings me on now to your time in Stargate Universe playing Varro, and I suppose that was probably the one Stargate that probably went against the trend in terms of off-world sort of discoveries. The Stargate Universe always also it reminded me a bit of Battlestar Galactica in terms of the not the fighting of the ships, but actual the human sort of emotions that went on in Battlestar Galactica in terms of what happened in terms of conflict, drugs, sex, killing, raping, the whole sort of human cancer, all that went on in Battlestar Galactica. That was sort of the theme I thought in Stargate Universe, the whole human nature, the whole human emotions that were lost in space, and very different to the SG1 where you're traveling and you're trying to take down different alien creatures each week.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Stargate Universe was a darker version of Stargate, and I felt like SG was a lot more character driven. Again, like you said, there was a lot more conflict involved. It was a lot more about each character's going through. It wasn't a rosy. Not everybody was having a great day. I totally believe that SGU, had to separate itself from the other two Stargates. And yes, there were some similarities as far as look and the dark feeling of it, like with Battlestar Galactica. But again, I was so lucky to get on that show as well. Now, speaking of that, I had read for a couple of the leads, but they had told me that no, you can't be on the show because I played Kiryk and Odai Ventrell, that there was no way I could do the show after I'd read for it. So I was a little bummed out about that. But eventually, towards the end of the season, they came back to me and said if I'd be interested in playing Varro, and absolutely, because again, very blessed to be able to work on that show, and they always treated me so well. So I was happy when I came back to go on Stargate Universe.
And I suppose, Mike, in terms of Stargate, I suppose obviously SG1 probably takes the Big Daddy sort of in terms of the most sort of popular. But Stargate Universe, it probably went under the radar sort of a bit there for a while in terms of it's known. It was probably known in Canada and USA, but probably known globally. I suppose it didn't really reach out that far globally, where Stargate Atlantis and Stargate SG1 obviously were shown all over the world. Stargate Universe was probably more shown in just Canada and USA.
Yes, I believe what had happened was it was a bit too much of a departure for some of the regular Stargate fans. So I don't think they liked the darker version of SGU. So I think that was the main problem at the beginning. But I think we started winning the fans back towards the end of the second season. And again, we were stunned when we didn't get the third season because I think our numbers were getting better and better, and people were starting to tune in to Stargate Universe. But I think at the end of the day, essentially the reason was that it was a darker show, and not a lot of fans globally were into the darker version of the Stargate series.
And I suppose, Mike, having spent an awful lot of your time in Stargate, having been involved in the sort of three series and having touched on the different aspects of it, do you think all the bases are covered now going forward? Do you think any producer, director out there? I know there's been a Stargate Origin since, and they've gone back to the sort of prequel before the Egypt. Do you think they've all the angles covered now in terms of that sort of franchise? Maybe a possibility of maybe a movie, given that the first one has been so long. But in terms of TV series, is there any sort of different angles you think they could look at? Maybe the background of Kyryk's character, the Jaffa sort of nation, is that a possibility? Or
You know, that's really interesting. I also like, as far as Teal goes, that background would be great. Also, Ronan would be great. The runners, I think, would be an interesting, see how they became runners, would be an interesting backstory as well. Now, I don't know. I've heard rumblings that they're talking about resurrecting one of the Stargates. So I'm not sure which one, because some of the fans have reached out on social media and said, would you be interested in doing it? Of course I would. But I think they are looking to maybe bring it back. And I'm curious to see how they're going to do that and which way they go. Is it going to be more of an origin story as well? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on it? What do you think?
I suppose in terms of looking at it, I suppose Mike, it probably the Atlantis probably team is probably the one that's probably pressure because the SG1, I suppose, if you're not going to have Amanda or Michael Shanks sort of involved, well, obviously Richard Dean's not going to be involved. You're probably sort of the 10 seasons, you're probably deflating its sort of value, while probably
Sure.
Atlantis only had 4 or 5, so there's probably bit more growth to that, you could probably say.
Yeah, you're probably right. Atlantis or SGU, I think they could definitely do with that. But I'm wondering if they're going to try a totally unique version of it, or if they're just going to redo it. I don't know. But I've heard rumblings that that they're thinking about it. So.
And obviously, it's based in Vancouver and British Columbia. Obviously, if the rumblings doing about it, it's probably based that franchise is based on that sort of city. It's sort of cornerstone. So I imagine it won't be too far from home anyway, Mike.
No, not at all. Yeah, again, although I think some of the producers are in LA, and I'm usually in LA as well, but we keep a home here in Vancouver. So yeah, I'm curious to see. It'd definitely be interested in about it.
I suppose that Mike, normally I finish with this sort of question. I ask in terms of if there was an encyclopedia or a dictionary, and I ask about your character and say if he was put in a dictionary to say to mention 2 sentences to portray him on how you would like to read. But because you have played multiple characters, we could be here for the next 10 or 15 minutes. So I'm just going to ask you a different sort of question to sort of finish off. In terms of your time in Stargate, the 3 sort of shows, in terms of working in it, how would you sort of rate that whole sort of experience in terms of your career so far? In terms of a rewarding experience, how would you sum it up in 2 sentences? Your time in Stargate being involved in 3 franchises.
Oh, that's a tough one. It's easy for me to say the one thing. So I guess for me, Stargate was a blessing, because I got to do so many different things on the 3 versions of the series. So I was very fortunate, very blessed to be able to portray Varro and Colonel Chernovshev and Odai Ventrell and Kiryk, and the crews and the cast were so amazing. So yeah, it definitely was a big help to my career.
Mike, on that note, a pleasure talking to you today to relive your memories of your time in not only Stargate SG1, but Stargate Atlantis and Stargate Universe as well, playing the characters Colonel Ruslan Chernovshev, Odai Ventrell, Kiryk, and Varro. Pleasure, Mike, and we wish you a prosperous 2021.
Thank you. Likewise, Jim. Nice talking to you.
Cheers. Take care.
Cheers.